Book one of is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. Planetary magic, archetypes, and real world alchemy. Give your listeners an episode that, well, for sure, talk about something new working with the planetary archetypes. Well, none other than one of her advocacy, none other than Miss Lucy Baldwin. Welcome, welcome, Miss Lucy on Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Yes, I am Lucy Baldwin, and I teach planetary magic and have been working with the planets for maybe since 2017, so almost 10 years now. And I just really love working with these archetypal forces as allies and taking the planets on as allies and using their wisdom to support me in my life and teaching other people to do so as well.
Yes, interesting, interesting, Miss Lucy. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So today let's talk about beyond interpretation, how astrology and planetary magic work beautifully together. Beyond interpretation, the title of our topic for today is A Move Past Passive Understanding into Active Collaboration. How do you define a crucial shift mindset from seeing astrology as disruptive or descriptive language to treating it as a collaborative framework for a magical work?
Yeah, so a lot of people are familiar with their astrology, and usually we at least know the sign that the sun was in when we were born. So that's usually the sign that we would say, like, I'm a Leo or whichever. But we actually have all the planets are in signs when we're born, and that's what makes up our chart. And over the years, I've noticed that a lot of people look at their astrology chart and we sort of take on our astrology as almost like an identity, these sort of things that are kind of acting on us that we don't have a lot of control or sovereignty over. And so the idea of working with the planets as allies and working with the planets um, through what I call magic, but really just working with the archetypes to sort of awaken them within our own unconscious gives us the ability to have a more active role in engaging with these different parts of ourselves and bringing in the different energies from each of the planets in ways that can help us and kind of get us where we're trying to go.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. What is the core elegant synergy between astrology and the planetary magic? Why do they belong together in a way that or tarot or other symbolic system might not achieve with the same beauty?
Yeah, I mean, it's largely because, when we look at our astrology, each of those 7 planets, and actually there's more planets in our solar system than just the 7, but in astrology, it's really I focus on the 7 classical inner planets that represent the self and the individual. So that would be the sun, which I realize isn't technically a planet, but for the sake of astrology it is. Same with the moon, Mars, Venus, Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn. So those are the 7 planets, and each of them has a placement in our astrology. So each of them is in a sign. So, the sun will be in one of the 12 signs, and that will sort of that sort of represents our outward personality, because the sun is very outward facing. And but you'll also have, Venus will be in a sign and Mercury will be in a sign. And so, if you're familiar with your astrology and you're familiar with the signs, different signs have sort of different strengths and weaknesses, right? They give us sort of different boons. And each planet actually has associated signs that are, that it does really well in. For example, my Saturn is in the sign of Capricorn, which is a really great and strong placement for Saturn. But some people have Saturn in, it's called a detriment. So you can have a planet in a detriment, a sign that is more challenging or that doesn't sort of work as well with that sign, or sorry, with that planet. And with planetary magic, you can work with the planets to sort of engage with those archetypes in new ways. So things it's sort of like just to be really simple, because there's a lot of like astrology lingo. It's sort of like things that you struggle with, you can call in by working with the planets. So you can because the idea is that the 7 planets represent the full spectrum of the human experience and the human psyche. So within each of the planets is sort of anything that we might want to call in. For example, if you're having a hard time like going out and getting stuff done, you would want to work with Mars. You just call in that sort of Mars energy that you already have in yourself. Or if you have a hard time receiving, like it's hard to receive things, you're always going out and doing, and you want to have people kind of come to you, or you just find it hard to like, ask for things that you need help with, you would work with Venus because Venus is all about like that sort of receptive feminine quality. And so, yeah, I'm not sure if that answers your question or if I'm getting
Yes,
into too much into the weeds here, but
definitely. Definitely, Miss Lucy. So, addressing the skepticism for someone who views astrology as psychological metaphor and magic as superstition, how would you frame their union as a coherent, pragmatic system of intentional living and personal transformation?
yeah, I mean, I think that astrology I think all of this works as a metaphor, and I always tell people, even if you don't believe in magic, you can still, um, you when I the way that I actually frame and explain magic is that we're actually just communicating with our own self. So it's sort of like, uh humans are particularly good at interpreting symbols. That's what language is, right? Language is just symbol and structure. It's symbols, words in grammar, which is the structure. And so our minds are so good, just fascinatingly good at understanding symbols and structures. And magic is just sort of a framework for putting symbols in structures and communicating to ourselves and our unconscious in new ways. So, for example, if let's say I'm in a fight or like I'm in a legal battle with someone and I want to win, I might do a ritual where I kind of create a little sacred space, you would say, but you could even just say like you're just doing it within a special sort of time frame or at a special place, or you light a candle. And then I might have like one figure kind of like knock over another figure. That would be a really strong symbol of winning in a fight, right? And so that's just a symbol to tell myself. It's a really simple example, but it would be a really powerful symbol to just tell myself this is what I want to see happen. And because we have the ability to do a lot of things. Like there are so many potentials that each of us has within us, and it's a matter of sort of directing ourselves and harnessing those potentials and bringing our unconscious mind on board, and also sort of overcoming some of the beliefs or blocks that might be sort of stopping us from doing what it is that we want to be doing.
Hmm. So let's talk about the practical mechanism of fusion, the engine of timing. Electrical astrology is a key. How does working with planetary hour, day, or specific transit fundamentally alter the efficacy or nature of the magical act compared to performing it at a random time?
So a lot of people like to do align the magic or whatever ritual they're doing, especially working with the planets, with these sort of planetary times and aspects that are happening. And the way that I see it is that this can just sort of enhance um but again, it's more for ourselves to feel like, because the more you kind of believe in the symbol and the more you commit to it, the more you can let it actually influence you, because we're kind of trying to influence ourselves to do what we want in a lot of ways. I think a lot of us go through life realizing that we don't have as much kind of self-control as we wish we did. We don't always sort of show up the way we want to, or we don't always say the thing that we meant to say. And so we're using this to try to kind of help ourselves to um kind of get ourselves to get on board with whatever it is that we're trying to create. And so the more that we can believe in it, I think that does lend to it have being more powerful. And you know, kind of what you're talking about is having more sort of layers of, I'm struggling to think of the word right now, but just like matching it, giving it as much sort of oomph as we can.
Mhm. From the inside to ingredients, how do you translate astrological chart reading into specific magical prescription?
Yeah, so I mean, you can kind of work with it in numerous ways, but if I'm getting a reading and the astrologers will often tell us like, oh, this is going to be a point of friction for you, or this is somewhere where you might like have a hard time, or you're going to have to work through something. I would My approach would be to want to then work with those planets and kind of, petition them or do some kind of devotionary practice to help me in that area. So I might, if they were saying like, "Oh, you're really going to struggle with discipline because your Saturn is in your 12th house," or something like that, then I might sort of decide to work with Saturn and do a devotionary practice to build the skill of discipline. And that would help me kind of overcome or sort of, you know, seduce myself into sort of not having this kind of detrimental placement. But you could also work with it and kind of capitalize on things that the astrologer would tell you that, oh, this is something you're really good at. So, like, oh, you're really good at writing or communication, that, or you have really strong Mercury. You might be like, great, I want to go all in and work with Mercury and really like call in that energy and use it and kind of ride it to help me do the things that I'm trying to do, and also focus on doing things that are more sort of mercurial in nature, and also doing things in more mercurial ways.
Hmm. Interesting, Miss Lucy. So, how do you navigate using the transpersonal planetary energies like Jupiter, Saturn for intimate personal magical goals? Where is the line between aligning with forces and attempting to command it?
So yeah, I mean, I think that, I like to think of it as working with them as allies. And I think that a lot of people use the language of gods, like we're thinking of them as sort of these planetary deities. And so I really see, I mean, I see them as these kind of both archetypes, and sometimes it helps for me to imagine them as these sort of like external higher powers that I'm trying to kind of seduce into, giving me the boons that I want, but also in it's a very like I said, kind of devotionary, and there's sort of a sense of um gratitude is a really big part of doing magic. And so having just like gratitude and appreciation for everything. And that's also kind of a way of, like, I would say, spell casting, right? It's kind of a, I guess, maybe just arguably more approachable for me. Take on sort of affirmations, because the idea of affirmations, I'm just like, "Blah, I'm never going to do that." But if I would say to, like, I'm thinking of Venus, like, "Oh, how did everything get so beautiful? How did my life get so beautiful? How did I, get to feel so good about my body?" And sort of being like, "Wow, Venus, thank you so much for helping me feel so good about my body," or "Thank you so much for all of these amazing relationships." And so working in this sort of like coming from this place of gratitude, it's like you're thanking Venus for already giving you what you're asking for. And so it's kind of like, we're petitioning them, but doing it with this, as much as possible, felt sense of gratitude.
Let's talk about the ethics, challenges, and personal practice, Miss Lucy. The responsibility of influence. Does engaging in planetary magic to improve challenging natal aspect or transit represent wise co creation with the cosmic forces or an attempt to circumvent necessary life lessons. How do you think about this ethical layer?
I think that there is no escaping life's lessons. And sometimes I'm actually teaching a course on Saturn magic right now. And a lot of people want to avoid Saturn magic because Saturn is time and change and death. You know, time and death are always associated with each other. And so a lot of people are scared of Saturn. And I feel like Saturn does sort of, it's also associated with limitations because, of course, time is sort of our ultimate limitation. And the way that I frame it is that, yeah, sometimes Saturn will give us hard lessons. But that, learning those lessons and receiving them as lessons is how we grow and evolve and change. And there's no avoiding it. It's sort of like you can't actually escape any of the truths of being a human because this is real magic, it's not fantasy magic, so we can't actually, we can't bypass the truth, and if we try to, the planets will kind of, let us know and maybe give us a bit of a hard time. It's like, if your magic isn't working, um, then maybe there's something that you need to look at or sort of deal with.
Hmm, definitely. So, Miss Lucy, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
My short-term and long-term goals, I would say my long-term goal is to get more people who are doing astrology into working with the planets and having this more just, I would say, like, active role in engaging with reality and their own psyche, because I do see a lot of, I see a lot of people in who get astrology readings and then get really stuck in the idea that there's something wrong with me that I can't fix because it's I have this bad astrological placement, and I really want people to have more sort of sovereignty over themselves, over finding like happiness and peace and um harmony in their lives. And yeah, I guess that's also my short-term goal. That's just that's just the mission that I'm on.
Good luck to your goals, Miss Lucy, and looking forward for more success. And what will be a piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
I mean, my advice is always to trust yourself and intuition is everything. I think a lot of people are worried slash scared to engage with magic because they're afraid they're going to do it wrong. But magic is just communicating, as I've kind of said, with your own self. So trusting yourself, you are not going to give yourself more than you can handle. And also, being in more in the body, letting yourself experience things in your body instead of just being in the mind all the time.
Hmm. Yes, definitely. And thank you for that. So, can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
So I'm going to recommend, I'm really torn here. I'm going to recommend Journey, or sorry, I'm so sorry. What is it? A Thousand Names for Joy by Byron Katie.
Hmm.
Because I think it's just an incredible process that she teaches for questioning your thoughts, questioning your beliefs. And Byron Katie is an awakened, enlightened person, and her story is just incredibly inspiring and profound.
Thank you for that recommended book, Miss Lucy. So let's talk about a case study. Could you share a specific example of how your client used astrological insight to design a magical working to lead to a tangible, meaningful shift?
So I have so many examples. I would say one that pops to mind, like first and foremost, is somebody took one of my courses and let me know a few months later that she was able, through that course, to build a house without getting a mortgage. And so this was a course, a magic course that went through all 7 planets, and it was around like building wealth, not just like money for money's sake, but true wealth. Like, what are the things that we really want that sort of nurture us? And yeah, she said that she was able to build a house through the work that she did in that program. Um, yeah, and that's pretty cool. I mean, that's a really, like, external sort of, thing. I also get a lot of emails from people that my Saturn programs have really changed their lives because, a lot of people are really living in their heads, and the Saturn program can help sort of ground because Saturn is the 4D sort of space-time reality, and I think, it can really make a big difference if you haven't been engaging in that.
Yes. So, what is the biggest mistake or misunderstanding you see newcomers make when they are trying to blend astrology and magic?
I think it's, kind of what I addressed earlier. It's overthinking it and also being, like, worried that they're gonna do something wrong or mess something up, because, like I said, it's just communicating with your own mind, and so it's all about our intuition, and a lot of people, I think, it has to do with our culture and the way that we go through school, and we just kind of learn to that there's kind of a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things, and there's oftentimes like an authority that sort of dictates what the right way is. And magic is just a very sort of personal path that anybody can do and figure out and sort of go on your own journey. So, because you're just, like I said, communicating with yourself, you can just sort of talk to the gods. It's just like praying. A lot of people I think understand what praying is, and magic is sort of the same thing, and in fact, it can take the same form.
Mm. Yes, definitely. And before we wrap up our discussion today, Miss Lucy, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in sixth season, abstract poetry in third season, and of course, my book 101 review in sixth season as well, comedy 101 in third season, and my food 101 in sixth season too. Geography 101, love letters, movie 101, review music 101, are fifth season, Science 101, Sex 101 in its fourth season, Trivia 101, Law 101, Mental Health 101, Motivation 101, Entrepreneurship 101, and Bible Verses 101 on my baby podcast. So please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So finally, when astrology and planetary magic are working together beautifully, as you title of our topic for today, what is the qualitative experience for the practitioner?
I mean, so qualitative is a hard I'm not I think, because a lot of it is for me, um, yeah, it's like, what do you where it's all about creating the life that you want. It's about growing. I really see magic and this whole planetary magic as a path of self growth, self development. This is for people who are seekers. And so I do think that people can get stuck on seeking things, but it's sort of like helping us find ourselves, find our truths, and find peace and harmony and happiness and love, and um, live a beautiful life with connection. Sorry, like a beautiful life that feels connected.
Beautiful, beautiful life for sure. So, Miss Lucy, again, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your business, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, so I actually have a free membership where I put on a ritual every month. So this is a great opportunity to come and participate in a ritual and sort of check out what we have going on. And there's also connection games that we play on Zoom. So yeah, everybody is welcome to come and check that out and absorb some of that ritual magic.
Hmm. Yes, people, let's support Miss Lucy Baldwin because if you support her, for sure, more and more empowering advocacy like this will rise. So, Miss Lucy, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Morikan people, see you soon.